So you guys didn't bring water.
No,
After all
but
that?
we got a work to do.
I see.
We
But
only have so many hands.
Right.
Here.
You need like a hiking pack with the straw that goes into your.
Ooh, that could be a good potential.
I mean, it's
sponsor.
not-
Alex, I hadn't even thought of that.
It's not hospitable here. It's not like go for a lovely,
We try and make
you're
it
facing
hospitable.
We're facing some brutal weather many months out of the year.
And where are you based? You're in New York, right?
Upstate now, yeah.
Upstate Hudson Valley.
Yeah, Lower Hudson.
Lower Hudson. All right. We've started walking. We are in this neighborhood that nobody knows the answer to what it's called. We are walking with somebody we're already talking to, but we haven't introduced you to. I think we're off to a pretty good start. It's mysterious.
It's Alex Ross Perry.
Oh, the mystery is solved.
Going for a stroll.
On your left.
You're listening to Doc Walks with Ben and Keith.
We're out walking. It's not too hot today. This is like, for Austin, you're lucking out.
I've had 3 weeks of weather at home not breaking 79, so it's a bit of a shock to come down here and see this in September when at home it's in the 50s by midnight.
Yeah, I'm a little concerned with you wearing long pants.
Oh,
as well.
I don't wear shorts. We're about to go do a Q&A at Austin Film Society. I'm not going to show up for that.
Well, you're a professional. I appreciate that. So what are you doing in Austin?
I made a segment in Shudder's annual franchise called VHS. For those who don't know, the VHS franchise is an omnibus franchise built around found footage horror. Each one is made up of either 5 or 6 segments made by 5 or 6 different filmmakers. And I contributed a chapter to this year's, and it had its premiere at Fantastic Fest in advance of an October streaming date on Shudder.
Cool.
And I came down to promote it, do some press, meet the other filmmakers in this big collaborative project. And coincidentally, I just happened to be looking and seeing where my other recent film, Video Heaven, was playing these days. And I said, wait, it's playing in Austin while I am there.
Oh, this is coincidence.
A total coincidence. My flight is at 7, and I said, oh, if this is at like 5, that's a bad coincidence. And the screening was at 12:30, and I said, my obligations to Shudder are complete, and I'll be there.
Amazing. Wow. You have 2 movies playing in Austin, Texas, 2 different movies in the same day. That seems like success.
It does. Of course, we know that there's versions of success that are relevant and less relevant. Obviously, getting to make a little 20-minute piece of a 2-hour horror film is successful. Spending 10 years on an essay film, largely with one other collaborator and editor, it's successful. That's not something anybody can do, but we all know that no documentary is going to make you rich, much less a side project essay film.
Wait a second. Documentary is not, we're not in it for the money?
This movie, Video Heaven, like I said, the entire infrastructure of the movie over a decade is less than 10 people. And it was a very, very cheap movie because we created no material for it.
Right.
We sourced every clip in it. So I think I'll probably make more money on this than anything else I've ever made. But that's 10 years of making an essay film for under $50,000 that every screening that brings in 500 gets us closer to profit.
So we're fair using the whole thing, I'm assuming.
Oh, absolutely fair use, yeah.
Yeah.
175 clips of video store depictions in film and television from the late 70s into the theoretical future.
Well, so we
Video Heaven. Like, we should do a full intro then.
Sure,
shouldn't
we'll
we?
lead us off to the races, but let's back up.
Let's back up. So here we are, we're walking. This is Alex Ross
Easy for you to say.
This is Alex Ross Perry visiting from New York, active filmmaker with multiple titles on the marquees this year. We were chatting beforehand. You met Ben back in 2009 when you put out your first film, Cine Vegas. What film was that?
A movie of mine was called Impolex.
Impolex.
16 millimeter kind of midnight fever dream, Gravity's Rainbow inspired 73-minute curio.
Very good. That's a great, simple one-liner description. I got it.
Well, I've been giving it for 16 years.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
think I know how to describe it now.
There you go. I became aware of you with Listen Up, Philip, which is 2014.
That's right, yeah.
Jason Schwartzman is in that.
That's right, yeah.
Yeah. And so think of you as an indie scripted comedy with a twist, sad comedy, interesting human experience kind of filmmaker. But you've got 3 titles this year that defy that overly simplified description.
Yeah, how was that description for you?
You know,
I haven't been practicing that for 16 years or ever.
it's that is, you know, I think after Color Wheel and Listen Up Philip, that was definitely mostly what anyone who'd ever seen anything I made would say and had seen. And then, you know, I just try to make different things, and the movies after that are highly scripted, of course, in their own way, but everything's different. And I don't think if somebody had only seen Queen of Earth and Her Smell, they would be like illiterate, humorous, dramatic. Would be like, wow, these are just kind of like intense psychological films. So you never know. It just depends on which 2 or 3 people have maybe seen.
Yeah.
And if people have only seen stuff I've made in the last 2 years, they'll be like, oh, I didn't know that guy like made narrative films.
Exactly. Well, and that's what's so interesting to talk with you about right now is you are primarily a scripted director who has made not 1, but 2 documentaries in a row now.
Yeah, in a row concurrently. It's not like I finished one and made the other. It's like they've come out in a row, but of course, you know, you're often working on different things with different people.
Right.
Do you consider both Pavements, which came out in 2024 and is still kind of, you know, bouncing around, and this new film, Video Heaven, which is the video essay we were just talking about over the last 11 years, do you consider those documentaries?
Oh, certainly. Yeah, they're definitely documentaries. Video Heaven's strictly a documentary, but, you know, Pavements is, it's a fictional documentary, or it's a scripted nonfiction film, but yeah, it's curious, you know, like up until I made this movie in 2018 called Her Smell, I had written and directed, at that point, 6 scripted, cast, traditionally shot and edited narrative features. Now I made a concert film that has a narrative component in it. I made a Pavement movie, Video Heaven. People say, how many movies have you made? And I'm like, well, I mean, to me, like 9 or 10, but like someone might look at a concert film that I was just a co-director on and be like, well, that doesn't count.
Which one's that?
It's called Right Here, Right Now. It's by the Swedish metal band Ghost, who I collaborate with a lot.
Okay.
But yeah, you know, Video Heaven's a documentary. It's an essay film. It's nonfiction for sure. Pavements is a documentary, but it's definitely fiction. So it depends. If you can have a documentary that's fiction, then yeah, it's definitely a documentary.
Wow.
If that breaks the rules, then no, it's just a fiction film that uses the camera and editing aesthetics of documentary to make people not understand what they're watching.
Yeah.
Wow.
It succeeds.
I want to ask a lot of follow-up questions about that, because as a Pavement fan, I was so excited to see that trailer, because I didn't know that you were working on that film until I saw the trailer. And I knew that there was already a Pavement documentary made by Lance Bangs, probably what, 10, 15 years ago?
Oh, longer. I mean, yeah, it's I would guess 2003 even. It's pretty soon after they broke up.
Okay.
Slow. It's just a DVD. You know, it's a DVD, so it came out in the DVD era. It wasn't
Right.
And
a film. It was not like that movie was released in even like the minor music documentary way.
But so how does this, wait, are you leading us over here to look at this?
I'm just taking a look at what's going on over
This
here.
assemblage of bric-a-brac?
I saw Lance Bangs shows up in the credits to your film.
It's true. He, via his inestimable, is that the right word when something's just like beyond esteem? His unfathomable archive
Yeah.
that he used to make his own movie, getting him involved was necessary in order to have access to some of his material, and most crucially, ideally, not stuff that he had used.
Right.
We want to see other stuff he cut out. He has this thing where Stephen Malkmus is sitting on the porch of a house, filming what is meant to be an introduction. Welcome, I'm Stephen Malkmus from the band Pavement, and a plane flies overhead, and you can, you know, they're kind of like, hang on, let's hold for sound. And Malkmus just kind of sits there for like a minute and just keeps talking. And of course, when you're editing a real thing, you cut that out. And me and the editor were both watching this kind of the same day, and I texted him and I was like, have you seen this thing where it's like the camera's just rolling, but he like, it's the stuff anyone else would cut out? He's like, yeah, we're starting the movie with that. Like the introduction that you wouldn't use the first time you make a movie.
Right.
Now we use the introduction where it's like, yeah, he's just holding for sound, and there's moments of truth in that.
Yeah.
Where the second someone says hold for sound but don't cut, they're like, this will never get used.
Right.
I can make some funny faces, I can clown around,
Yeah.
and you show 30 seconds of honesty that no one would ever give if it was like, okay, action, go. They just think like, all right, well, you won't use this
Yeah.
because the sound is weird. So stuff like that was what we found in Lance's archive, and he's a producer on the movie.
Gotcha.
And was, supportive. He was there at Venice with us, New York Film Festival. His footage really is valuable.
I appreciate that we have not held for sound, but we have created these dogs. We're causing anxiety in the canine population of this neighborhood.
Well, there's, birds and dogs in life.
Now that we're in this neighborhood, we were trying to decide what this neighborhood is. And I've come to remember now, I have driven around this neighborhood before, and one of the things that makes me so excited about it is all the names of the streets in this neighborhood are people's names.
Okay.
So when you're giving people, if you live in this neighborhood and you're giving people directions, it's, you sound like a real gossip,
Sure.
right?
The corner of Lisa and Isabel.
Yeah, like, and if Lisa and Isabel, ever break up, like, you got to move.
You're in trouble. Yeah, you're not going to know where you are.
There actually is an intersection in here that is important to me. My mother's name is Marilyn, my wife's name is Sarah, and those two streets intersect in this neighborhood.
All right, well, here we are.
We're talking about Pavements, and this is a big opportunity to kind of take a band that has like a rabid following, has like tentacles of inspiration that go far beyond that fan base, and is also having a moment of reemergence in 2022. Can you talk a little bit about the genesis of that project, how it started?
It's very simple. Their 30th anniversary reunion was meant to be in 2020. It was curtailed by the pandemic, and somewhere in that summer when it became clear that they would be inactive for at least another year.
And just saying, we have to point out that as we're talking about your documentary about an indie band, we are walking by what sounds like band practice here, I think in this
It was like some middle-aged dad banging away on his drums on Sunday.
Because the whole band is there, you're saying.
Hey,
At the corner of Isabel and Lisa.
don't disparage middle-aged dads playing drums, please.
So they somewhere in the chain of Matador Records, their longtime label, the idea was there that there's no reason that we're not using this time to make something, to make a movie. It's time. This is an obvious thing. Bands do it. We should do it. And it just kind of came from there. And one of the film's producers, who Matador went to some producers, they knew. One of the producers said, I think I've got the guy for this. He said to me, I thought of you because as a scripted fictional character, it feels like you would create a Stephen Malkmus character. He, as a person in the world, and his relationships with people and his genius is very similar to the characters you would think of and make. And I said, I agree. So let's make him a fictional character in his own true story. And it was kind of just from there. I came up with some very wonky ideas, all of which are what the movie is. Suggested them to him in a series of casual conversations, and he said, let's do it. A year later or so, I had interviewed everyone in the band, all their colleagues, compiled research, and then their concerts finally happened in 2022, and they, in the interim, had unexpected, unanticipated viral success of a huge nature that was changing what they had always been in the eyes of fans and the public.
Right, and that was a clip about which song?
Harness Your Hopes. This B-side that wasn't even really on my radar as research because it played no role in their story. It was not, they'd only ever performed it even in concert once prior to breaking up, and suddenly by the time we're making the movie 2 years later, it's a different story than the one we set out to make.
That's wild.
That's
and that was on their last album, which was...
It was actually a B-side
Twilight
from
Terror?
their penultimate album. It was a B-side from Bright in the Corners.
Right in the corners.
So even more improbable. And the simplest way to explain the sort of real world documentary relationship in this is sometimes the world writes your story for you in a way that's favorable to the movie but unexpected.
Yes.
One of my earliest jokes, ideas, concepts was very acclaimed band, beloved, phenomenally successful in their own way, acclaim, but they never had the sales, they never made the money. So in the world of this movie, we'll show a series of gold and platinum records that in our fictional version of the band, they have received because we want to tell a story about what if that outsized influence was real. And then by the time we finish the movie, they have gold records.
No way.
So
Look at
it's just not even, the joke doesn't even read anymore because fans may have seen them on Instagram being given their gold 7 inches. So then when they see the movie, it's like, yeah, this is a band that puts up those numbers.
That's incredible. And that speaks to the power of documentary. I mean, I think anybody who spends their time making nonfiction work has a version of a story like that, where it's like you set out to make this story and you discover in the process that there's actually a better story that kind of rises to the occasion to meet you.
It can, and something I never would have suggested we try to do is, it's in order to sell people in this fictional version of this story on the band's outsized influence, it'd be great if we had like a clip of some movie that made $1 billion in which Malkmus or Pavement is referenced. I couldn't come up with that because how could we generate that? And by the time we're making the movie, I've been told like there's going to be a Stephen Malkmus joke in Barbie. And by the time we're finished our movie, we have the clip of Barbie that in 2020 when we started, there would have been no reason to assume that would happen. But by the time we finished the movie, we had it. A joke I would have come up with is, wouldn't it be funny if Pavement were on the giant billboard overlooking Times Square? But by the time we finished the edit, that had happened.
Wow.
So I went to Times Square and got the shot of their music video that I also directed playing on the Jumbotron.
That's incredible. It sounds like you need to be some type of fortune teller. Pavement needs you to predict a lot more things that are going to happen.
It's interesting in terms of the nonfiction aspect you want to talk about, which is just simply when I started these interviews in 2020, no one in this band had seen each other in 10 years. They hadn't been in the same room since their last reunion tour. By the time we finished the film in 2024, they had experienced the most overt success of their 35-year career.
Wow.
And that's just you're making a movie about two different bands. The band we started making the movie about and the band we premiered the movie about. The entire conceit I was exploring in all the research was, why didn't this band that are just undeniably beloved by many, better than most, acclaimed, why did they never go the distance with the money and with the success and with the ticket sales?
Right.
But then by the time the movie was finished, they had done that. They had played the biggest shows of their career, biggest venues, highest ticket prices, younger audiences, diverse audiences, and we were, the initial conceit was irrelevant.
So as a filmmaker, were you like,
It was great.
Yeah, this is jackpot.
It's better that all this stuff happened. We had more material to play with.
Right. Or was there a part of you that was like, but if that hadn't happened, the jokes would have landed harder for your original?
No, the only thing that I really was like, it's not, you're here in Austin, they're playing here next weekend.
Yeah.
I just wanted some sense in the movie of this is their last show, maybe forever. And of course, years later, they're still playing. So I just thought it would be, the previous reunion tour ended definitively.
Yeah.
And we show that in the movie.
As you were first developing this idea, Nick, you said you came up with like a lot of different ideas, and those ideas end up in the movie. Can we kind of break those down into some subcategories? Is that cool to talk about? There's the movie,
A scripted biopic of the hokiest order.
Yes, which is called Free Range?
Called Range Life.
Range
Because
Life.
When they make these movies about bands, you have to name it after either their most acclaimed song, an album that everybody knows them from. The Queen movie's called Bohemian Rhapsody.
Right.
Elton John movie's called Rocket Man. You want to point at a title that everyone knows the song, but also in a weird way, the song kind of encapsulates the movie.
Okay, so you have the false Range Life biopic starring Joe
Keery as Malkmus.
Yeah.
And a cast of others, Jason Schwartzman and Tim Heidecker as the heads of Matador. The other, that's the A side. The B side of that is that we have a true mockumentary about the making of Range Life. So not only do we have traditionally shot 35mm scenes of Range Life, the B side of the Range Life storyline is Joe's preposterous method actor work to discover this character and nail it and be in character for the entire shoot.
Right.
Now, of course, the shoot of Range Life was 6 days. So that's the entire shoot. That includes 3 days of mockumentary filming. But the reality of the movie, of course, you want it to seem like this guy's been working on this character for months.
Right.
Stretch it over time.
Yeah.
Yes.
So Range Life kind of has two components in the movie.
And then there's a Broadway revival.
An off-Broadway jukebox musical.
Musical,
workshop that we staged. I wrote the musical.
Oh, you wrote it?
I wrote the musical, worked with a great composer arranger, Keegan DeWitt, who has done my other films, and his partner, Dabney Morris. Choreographed and co-directed with Angela Trimberg, a great choreographer. And we rehearsed that show for 2 months. We had open auditions the first week of October, and we did it like December second, third, and fourth.
So that's okay. So I think you just answered one of the questions I had, right? The biopic is not a complete biopic. That is a calculated.
Shot 25 minutes.
Right. The musical, though,
Yes.
was a complete show, and the audiences who went into that had a full experience. Were they aware that they were part of another? Okay.
A thing on Pavement's Instagram, Pavement musical workshop performances, 2 days only, $30 tickets, sold out in 5 minutes.
Wow.
And people walked in with no clue that there was a movie. We hadn't announced the movie, and the show had to be credible. So that component of it, from a nonfiction standpoint, is the documentary about the musical, which is called Slanted! Enchanted! Every moment in it is true. The reality of the auditions, the weeks of rehearsal, the choreography, there's no thumb on the scale. It's being fabricated entirely by the documentary filmmaker, me.
And do the cast know that?
Yeah, but they didn't care.
Okay.
I thought they would care more, but ultimately, when you have 7 weeks to learn an hour of choreography and lyrics,
Yeah.
they don't care about whatever fuckery we're doing with this movie that no one understands. And it is an honest-to-God document of the 2-month process of putting that show on. Standing ovations, laughter, smiles, clapping along, singing along. There's no telling. I'm staging a scene
Yeah.
with no script in public. And that's the same as the museum component, which I'm sure you'll ask about. We put up a Pavement museum.
And how long was that open?
4 days. It was open during the same 4 days that they did 4 sold-out shows on this initial tour.
Oh, that's good to like piggyback off the
It's
show
Pavement
so
weekend.
that the fans could come.
For a year, I said, we know the dates for these 4 New York shows.
Yeah.
That's going to be Pavement weekend in New York. Blast it out. Fans are going to come from all over to go to these shows. We got to open those same 4 days and have people come in the afternoon and go straight to the show. And I spent about 9 months curating, dealing with the archive, going to the record label's archive, getting everyone in the band to send me stuff based on my research, in which I asked everybody if you could tell the story of the band through objects. What are those objects? People sent me everything. We rented a space. We production designed it inch by inch. And it was a film set. It was completely, we lit it like a film set. And then we just opened the doors and started filming every day and just see what happens. And then on one day, ribbon cutting, everybody from the label, every one of our friends says, secretly, come Saturday morning. We had 300 people there, 4 bands, tribute acts. I flew them in. Everyone played 3 Pavement songs. And even people in that room were not like, this must be bogus, because at that moment, the band's profile was such that this was a highly credible event in the world of how acclaimed and beloved this band was at that moment in their reunion tour.
But the thing that I'm so struck by is like everything that you're saying is that you did all of these things and you did them sincerely, or maybe sincere is the wrong word to use, but you did them actually.
Yeah.
But then the way that you described them a moment ago was fuckery and this movie that nobody understands.
Yeah, but if you want to make a documentary about something, like the musical is a perfect example of this, right? If you need a scene in a movie of a musical performance happening on stage, you have 2 options. Fill up your theater with SAG extras. Everyone gets $100 or something, and they have to watch it in a loop for 8 hours, and they have to clap. And we explored that to, because maybe that's how you want to do it. Or you spend 2 months putting on a musical. People pay you $30 to sit in the room. You only have to watch it once, and if they clap, they clap, and if they don't, they don't. And that's the movie. And it's just, I wrote the scene. The scene was opening night, Pavement musical, sold out, New York City. Our cast has been working for months. This is it. And then the rest of the page is blank because, whatever. You get what you get. The museum was the same. I wanted them to come. I didn't know Malkmus in the movie clowns around with the woman who's an actress who I hired to play the news reporter. It's an actress friend of mine. I didn't say, hey, can you please pretend all of these fake artifacts? Because about a quarter of the things in the museum are fake. The gold and platinum records I mentioned, a bogus MTV movie or MTV Video Music Award.
Yeah, the Absolute Vodka ad.
There's a bit of fake stuff. They knew there would be some falsehoods, but I didn't feed him lines. And then I saw the footage 2 days later, and I was like, he played along for 40 minutes. I didn't know he was going to do that. That's a miracle. He could have just said, all right, well, I've seen enough. Let me go do the ribbon cutting. And, we did the ribbon cutting. Then we pulled out another ribbon and we moved the camera from the front to the back to get the reverse angle, and we did it again, and people were confused. It was very confusing for people, but it was fun. You got to watch bands, you got to see the heroes, and Thurston Moore's there. Like, it's a real event. We gave people something. And, but that day, it was one day, it was like 11 to 3 we had them. We had like 7 cameras going, and I was like, we only need like 10 minutes. We'll get it.
Yeah. Incredible.
Just what it is TBD.
Yeah.
Just like, documentary filmmaker. Okay, so there's multiple threads in this film. There's
And then
archival.
the actual tour.
Right, there's the archival thread. There is the current day tour, like the most standard kind of like rock doc
Total
stuff.
fly on the
Those
wall.
2 things. And then there are these 3 kind of created threads of the story, the film within the film, and the making of the film within the film, the musical, and the museum.
Mm-hmm.
Are you budgeting the creation of all these things as a part of your production budget?
Yes.
Okay. And then, but the musical pays for itself.
Well, no.
Maybe it doesn't earn back its whole.
No, it was fun. I think we made $10,000 on box office sales, which just offsets.
Right.
But it's funny because shortly before we did the museum, Matador Records had done a similar pop-up for Interpol. And they had indie label PR budget, whereas we had indie movie budget, which shockingly is more. You wouldn't think an indie movie budget or indie documentary budget is more than anything.
not at
But
all.
it's more than a label can spend on a pop-up that's open for 2 days and is free.
Right.
And I'm talking a couple $100,000 for each section of the movie. Yeah, we budgeted them all. I mean, the budget of the movie that we budgeted for that would have been perfect was 200% of what we ended up making it for. The amount we got was it's almost to the dollar, 50% of the ideal budget for the movie.
Sure.
We made it anyway.
Yeah.
Wow. Good for you, man. That's
Should we
so cool.
hit the road
keep
again?
walking.
But
Yeah.
an example of that is like the full budget version was that we would have Range Life, the biopic. I wrote 50 pages of it. The full budget version is we shoot all 50. The version we were then able to make is we can really only afford to shoot about 20. But now that gives us the idea of, okay, so that'll take like 2.5 days. So for the other days, now let's change our idea creatively and do the mockumentary. And now we'll do the Joe getting into method character because we don't have enough money or time to shoot 50 pages of a script. But now it turns out that's actually a much better idea.
Who are you having like the biggest like top level conversations around creative with, and who are you having those conversations around producing, production, funding line items with?
It's kind of all the same. The movie has an improbable amount of producers and partners, but that's just because it's 2 production companies. And on a production side, people come from those companies, but the ones that were really rolling up their sleeves, from Vice, Danny Gabay, and ultimately Stu Goldstein from Vice, and then from All Day Every Day, and now World War VII, Peter Klein and Alex Needles, and then my partner in all production logistics, the only guy who could make a off-Broadway musical happen in a few weeks for a couple $100,000, Craig Buda. And then the 2 heads of the label, played by Schwartzman and Heidecker, Gerard Kozloy, who lives here in Austin,
Yeah.
and Chris Lombardi were producers on the movie, and they were on every single call, every funding call, every creative call. And, a lot of people, a lot of voices in the conversations.
Lame fan question, but I have to know if there was anything that you proposed to Malkmus that he didn't want to do.
No, because I was told these are things he won't want. He won't want a hagiographic thing. And he even told me, and when we talked, he said, just don't, you just can't make a movie about how cool the 90s were and how important we were and still are. You can't just make a thing that's celebratory of something that wasn't celebrated at the time. Of course, that's exactly what we did, but we did it in a way that it's not the overt meat and potatoes version. We did it through all these layers of reality that I'm describing in order to do exactly that, because that's the only movie you can make. Mm-hmm. You can't make a movie that has no nostalgia, triumph, payoff.
Well, you got to celebrate the thing you're making a documentary about.
But
Or attack it.
so I heard that not as literally don't do this, but don't do this literally. And that was what we did.
Good line. I think that
Yeah.
might be the name of our episode.
Did the band join in that process and throw ideas on the wall too, or did they step back?
Oh, certainly. Well, they stepped back. One, they don't want to be filmmakers. Nobody does. Nobody should. And 2, they're musicians, and they were concentrating on making this tour exceptional. There was plenty of ideas from my initial interviews that became things I could point at in the movie and say, so-and-so told me this, and this gave me this idea that's this moment. Chris Lombardi says, I could almost have pictured something back in the day, like so huge, Like I call him saying they want you on SNL, and he just says no, but I'll do Letterman if we can play the soundtrack to Stupid Animal Tricks. And I said, all right, Chris, well, that's a scene in the movie now. And now we put that scene in the scripted portion.
So that didn't happen?
No, and then countless people say,
amazing.
So that actually happened? They actually turned down SNL? And I say, nope, but they might as well have now because we put it in the movie. But that's really just the guy who's been the partner for 30 plus years saying, I could almost have seen something like this going down. And I said, perfect scene. You just wrote a perfect, awful biopic scene.
Yes, because that's.
And I think it's the trailer for the film, isn't it?
It's very prominent in the marketing.
Yeah.
And it like encapsulates the band so well.
Yeah,
It's
no,
like that moment rhymes with the Beavis and Butthead clip where
Yeah.
they're saying, try.
Yeah.
And I remember that so clearly and being so tickled by that at the time because I was such a fan of the band, and it kind of nails their ethos.
Yeah. And you know, the real story is that he turned down doing a Rolling Stone interview. Well, that has less sizzle than turning down SNL.
Sure.
So you, as you would in any awful hagiographic scripted biopic, you take 3 stories and you make them 1 story.
So wait a second. I have to return to something that you said just a minute ago because this feels connected in some way. You made a movie about a band that essentially was suspicious of fame and some could argue maybe sabotaged their success in some way. And then you just made the comment that nobody should want to be a filmmaker.
Well, it's just very hard, takes a long time, doesn't pay well.
Yeah, but that's not why you do it, right?
No. Well, you do it because theoretically you love making things, but after 4 years of unpaid work on something, you start to question your choices.
Yes.
When the movie's being rapturously received and you never got paid to make it and you won't, and all that work amounts to some cred. And as you know, with your kid, you can't take the cred to the private school.
No, it doesn't
And-
pay for Montessori.
No, it does not. As I've learned, having a kid in Montessori preschool, I unfortunately have not been able to pay for it with cred. So it's all well and good, but that's the Pavement lesson is that I learned from working with Malkmus for all these years and listening to him so much is like, all they had from 89 to 99 was cred. They had they had money, obviously. It was a different time where you could make good money touring and doing merch and whatnot, but they weren't mainstream successful. It was just cred. Then you put that on ice. Obviously other things happen, solo career, small reunion, but then cred, unimpeachable cred plus 20 years equals legend status. So I kind of just decided, all right, well, I can't make this whole movie and look at this 30-year story that has the best possible ending and not say, all right, I'll just play the long game and see what this cred turns into when my kid goes to college.
Right.
Can't pay for Montessori preschool with cred, but maybe I can pay for college with cred plus 2 decades.
Well, I was going to say, because one of the things that I know about you that I love is that similar to a friend that we share, David Lowery, you got hired to write a Disney script.
It's true.
Right? So like
Yes.
in a way, cred does sort of pay off, I guess.
In a way, hiring to do David's directed 2 Disney movies. I've written 2, one of which got made, one of which is maybe getting made as a writer, but the cred to your point earlier, a well-written movie like Listen Up, Philip being at Sundance gets you the cred to be a professional writer. No one, to quote my friend Ty West, when we were going to Venice, he said, no one's going to say to you when you get back, congratulations on your experimental documentary, here's a job. And he was right. Nobody did, and nobody will. In the way that nobody in the mainstream world rushed out to buy Pavement CDs in the 90s, no one's rushing out to see the movie. But people who seek out things that are atypical, interesting, it's out there now. It'll exist.
Well, as a fan, I definitely rushed to see the movie, and
It did great here. I played at AFS for like a month.
Played a long time. Yeah, we send a lot of people
performed
to
here
it.
by a shocking margin, and they just kept getting extended down here.
Well, and I caught Pavement on that 22 tour when they played Austin City Limits.
That's right. Yeah, that was I think filmed.
The moment in your film when they talk about how much they've practiced,
Yeah.
and the thing that struck me about their performance at Austin City Limits is how tight it was.
Yeah.
And it did not feel, I don't mean this as a slight, that you see this a lot in musicians. Like musicians who become famous in their early 20s are playing off of like instinct and energy and hormones. And if they've stayed with it for the next 30 years, they've had a lot of time to hone their skills. And
Yeah.
you actually start to hear lots of chops that you didn't hear in the original. It was very, I don't know, it was exciting to kind of see like the adult version of some of those same songs. They were small differences, but it was also like a little unsettling.
Well, I mean, we show that in the movie. They rehearsed more for this tour than they'd ever rehearsed. We have countless narratives in the movie, little sound clips of them saying, yeah, back in the day, the first show was the rehearsal. And this is famous, a famously sloppy, fly by the seat of your pants, no set list, shambolic band who made the decision for this tour, 14 days of rehearsal, we're going to be the best we've ever been. And every single person who saw the tour said they were.
Let's talk about the film is complicated, visually, structurally. It's edited by Robert Greene. He is known to play with questions of fiction and nonfiction in his work.
We're playing his game, but with his favorite band, but he doesn't get to direct it.
Yeah, how'd that go?
So I'll say it's not 50-50, but it's as much his movie as it is mine in every single frame. And he's a producer and the editor. I'm the producer and director. I never once sat with him while he edited. He edited entirely by himself at home in Columbia, Missouri. It's his movie, is every frame of the edit. And he was not present for hardly any of the filmmaking. And it's my movie in every frame of that. But we finished all these shoots, right? Like 7 cameras at the museum, shooting for 3 hours. Okay, that's over 20 hours of footage. I don't know what to do with that. I don't care. We finished shooting Range Life. We've got 100 hours of archival. It's not like I'm saying, yeah, this one moment from day 4, you got to get, it's like, here's 100 hours of footage. Have fun, my friend. 2 years later, we finished the movie.
Wow.
And what are your conversations? What's your workflow if you're not sitting with him? Is it thematic or is it cut by cut?
It's honestly too complicated to even begin to encapsulate, but essentially, it's his favorite band his whole life. 93, 94, he became obsessed with them. And every minute of it, he said, I waited my whole life to edit this movie. I've waited my whole life to edit a montage to this song. I've waited my whole life to make a moment like this about Stephen Malkmus, my favorite guy of all time. I was getting cuts sometimes twice a week. The first credible, entirely watchable cut of the movie that has the same exact shape that it has now was 3 hours long. And then it was a year of getting that 55 minutes shorter. I told him I wanted the structure of the film to mirror Christopher Nolan's Dunkirk as much as possible. A movie that has 3 timelines that take place over a week, a day, and an hour. And by an hour into the movie, they've all collided and are happening concurrently. We have a story that takes place over 30 years, a tour that takes place over 2 years, Range Life shoot that's meant to take place over a couple of months, a musical is meant to take place over a couple of months, and a museum that's meant to take place over 1 day. And about an hour 30 into our movie, they all hit the same point. And that was all I wanted. I told him that, and he figured it out somehow.
Wow, that is a surprising reference. A very cool one.
And they all collide around a sort of massive concurrent moment of the song Grounded being performed across space and time by the band in the 90s, by the band today, by our actors, Joe Keery playing Grounded on guitar, our musical actors singing Grounded on stage, and our super group of young female musicians playing Grounded at the ribbon cutting. Wow. And it all collides around that song when everything kind of reaches cruising altitude.
I want to shift gears radically because I feel like I could talk about the Pavement movie all afternoon.
It's a complex one. It's fun to parse.
But we're coming up to the end of our walk here, and we need to get you back for your Q&A.
Sure.
And I'm curious, you said so many things about filmmaking and about cred not paying the bills, but you also make these movies that are largely not commercial, and they are about cred. And so I'm just
not smart at all. It's the Pavement model. Like,
yeah,
there's no commercial benefit to making a 3-hour-long essay film about video stores, but if you have to do it, you have to do it.
Right.
If you have to tell the story, you're not going to not do it because there's no point to it.
Well, but that's what I'm curious about, I guess, is like particularly in this moment, and maybe it's because I have 2 small children who also go to Montessori school that I have to pay for, but I'm really thinking a lot right now about like how all of this comes together.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I run a commercial production company and I have to make commercials to pay the bills while I'm doing my creative
That's
projects.
what you do. That's what you do.
Yeah. And so what I'm building up to ask you about is there's this sort of existential threat hanging over all of our heads with AI, and people aren't going to the theater, and there's just this sort of like inflection point that always feels right now like it's just around the corner.
Yeah.
And I just wonder like what's going through your head about all that stuff right now too. Like how are you thinking about the future of our industry and what you do?
I don't really have a good answer to that. I don't think about it. I understand what AI is for. I don't not get it. every single person wants to do things faster and for less money. Like, I get it. I want to do things faster and for less money. If I have a script job and I'm turning in a draft of a script I'm being paid to write, and as it always does, it's coming in long. It's 130 pages, and we know the goal is 110. That's a lot. Someone's like, hey man, it was an AI thing. And you just feed it in and it'll tell you the types of scenes that always get cut out. Give it to me. Like, all right, fine, because the producer is just saying cut 25 pages. Right. And I'm like, that's a different movie. Like, that's not a note. That's like saying, I need you to take one room out of a house. And you're like, you can't take a room out of a house. You can just lock the door. But there is no shortcut for that. That's not what AI is for either. I'm not concerned about this because everything I think it is for, someone who's not used it, other than full disclosure, to generate images of our cats doing fantastical things for my daughter. She's like, I want to see Ripley in outer space. I'll get you a photoreal picture of Ripley in outer space. I'll admit I've done that. I want to see Figwit on a boat. All right, I'll get you a photoreal picture of Figwit on a boat. She loves it, and I'm not taking money out of the hands of an artist because of this. Because the other solution is I'm drawing it with a crayon, and she would love that less. So it's either I have to get a crayon and a piece of paper, or I can do this on my phone. It's really just to make a kid laugh, which is really what AI should be used for. Fundamentally, if I can give like a broader and vaguely honest answer, most of what I do, screenwriter. Most of what you do, clients, commercial production.
Yeah.
It is my opinion that the industry of screenwriting, Hollywood development, the industry of what you're doing, where you have a client, you need to hear their feedback. The industry is not driven on the end result. The industry is driven on infrastructure and process. I'm a screenwriter. Every screenwriter says, I'm afraid of AI. I say, I'm not afraid of AI at all. And they say, why? And I say, because producers and executives, they don't want to finish script. They don't want to have a perfect 95-page script finished in 2 days, because then they have to make it. What do they do with that? They don't want a finished, perfect AI-assisted product. Eventually you want to finish script, eventually you want to finish commercial. What people's job depends on is having 8 to 10 hours a day of work to do. Not me, them. Producers and executives need to do something. They don't want to say, I have an idea for a script. We'll use AI, we'll have it done by Friday. Then it's like, well, then what do you do on Monday? Budget it? What do you do the next Monday? Make it? Like, they don't want that. Right. They want work. They don't want to have worked. They want to be working. If producers couldn't spend 3 weeks, 3 months, a year developing a pitch, they would have nothing to do. This is all they do. You're developing, you're putting the pitch together for a job, a bid for every job.
Yeah.
If they couldn't say, all right, let's get on, I read your latest draft, I have some thoughts, they would have nothing on their schedule. And forget about the freelancers, the writers. The industry needs those people. Right. Because the industry feeds off of the producers and the executives. Right. They cannot afford to work in a infrastructure where the only thing that happens is end results. Nothing about the film industry is about end results except for 100 movies a year that Hollywood makes. Right. It is about the thousands of movies that are being written, noted, developed, redeveloped every single day. These people don't want to have nothing to do. AI gives you nothing to do. It gets you to the end result immediately. And I'm just like, guys, I've never met a producer or executive who wants a finished script. And everyone I've met wants a 3-hour notes call that could be an email.
That's a unique and refreshing take, and I like that. But the main wrinkle in that argument is that the streamers own everything now, and they make their money off of phones and groceries, and there is a world where they go, we don't need the executives who
That's true, but executives, they won't let them, this is the same as politicians. They won't let themselves be put out to pasture. For sure, they don't need them, but the executives would have to show themselves the door. Right. And nobody who's rich shows themselves the door. Right. We have 75, 80-year-old baby boomers in politics and entertainment who won't get out of the way, so the 45-year-old can get a promotion. No one's going to show themselves out, and they'll cling forever. But yeah, I mean, obviously
when they're a buffer, right? The streamers, the tech giants, the people who are actually ideally paying for the things that we're making at this point in time, they don't want to deal with a guy like this. They don't want to deal with it like me and you. They need a buffer. They need somebody there between them. Right. There's going to shrink. That buffer is going to shrink. It already is, right? There was, 7 execs at A24 2 years ago, and now there's 4.
Yeah, good. Well, hopefully soon there'll be 0, and then there'll be like these great 90s companies that don't exist anymore, where they had this moment, and then the moment passes and something else appears. That's the cycle. But, you know, if you were talking to a client who's like, all right, Ben, we're going to do a commercial.
Right.
Let me tell you exactly what I want. You would say, no one's ever said that before. Because if you, the client, could tell me exactly what you want, I could have this for you tomorrow.
Yeah.
And if you could tell me exactly what you want, you could have used AI to make it on your way here. But nobody knows exactly what they want, ever. And the only way they figure out what they want is by volleying ideas off of the person who they are paying to be that bounce board. No company that needs a commercial, no studio, no producer, no script. No one has ever known exactly what they want, except for the creative, the filmmaker. That's the process. Nobody will let go of that, because if they do, the person who's paying you has nothing to do. They have no reason to get up. They have no schedule. They have no lunch meeting. They have no coffee. They have no feedback call. That's all those people want. And I'm like, guys, as long as those people need to stay employed, we're fine.
Man, that is oddly very reassuring. Because what you're doing is not the thing that everybody else seems to do. You're not arguing against the efficacy of it. And I feel like that's always the counter argument is, oh, it's not that good, I won't do that. You're saying more like the system is full of inefficiencies and it has to stay that way.
You can't talk about the dressing without talking about the body that it's on.
Right.
And the body that AI is going on is an industry that is very precarious, very faulty, very temperamental, and subject to the whims of the person driving the car. Forget it. I don't care about the efficacy of it. I'm sure it's very efficient to make a picture of my cat in outer space.
Yeah.
It can literally do that in seconds. It's unbelievable. But like, no one's paying me to do that.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know. It's just like, this is just me as a freelance screenwriter. It's like, I see no threat, because I've never met a single person who's like, let me give you the movie scene by scene, line by line. And I can type, it's like, okay, well then type that into your AI prompt.
Right.
And you'll have your script done. And you're like, oh, well, okay, then I'll need you to take a look at it. And it's like, well, then you're still paying me. I don't want to say I have no faith in producers or executives. I don't want to say they have no brains, they have no imagination. They don't know what they want.
Right.
That is what you are paid to figure out. What are they going to do?
They're definitely not going to come up with a 3-hour-long essay film about video stores, which is playing right now at the AFS Cinema, and you are getting back for the Q&A about that. I expected we were going to talk more about that, but we ran
out of time.
We ran out of time because Pavements is so exciting to talk about.
Video Heaven will be on streaming in the spring. People can watch it. And it's like kicking around in nonprofits, fun art houses for the rest of this year and into next year.
Yeah. Well, I hope people check it out. It was very exciting as far as reliving childhood glory. You stopped in at my favorite video store, Two Boots. I'd lived 2 blocks away from there for my entire 20s, and that was our spot.
And the Traveling Pants 2 goes in there.
I appreciated those Traveling Pants. That is not a movie I was aware of. I watched the screener. I shared it like I'm not supposed to with my New York roommate who came over yesterday. We ate big sandwiches and watched your film.
I don't care if people share it. I want people to watch the movie. I didn't spend 10 years making it for no money, so to protect it.
I hope people go out and watch Pavements. That's streaming right now on Apple and Prime, and you guys can go rent it and enjoy it.
I have lots more questions about Video Heaven, and so hopefully maybe we can have you back on at some point.
Maybe we'll come up to the lower Hudson Valley for a cooler walk in the shade.
Thanks, guys.
Here comes the train again. All right.
Oh, look at us in the reflection. Okay. Well, Dayton, sorry, we were standing right by the train tracks to record this intro.
Outro?
That's what I said, outro. And that was Alex Ross Perry.
That was Alex Ross Perry. And you know what? Like, that is a guy who knows how to talk about his work. And that is a guy who knows how to get people excited about digging behind the seams, behind the scenes, under the covers.
Yes. I don't think that's the actual phrase, but I know what you're trying to say.
Alex is phrases left.
Alex is probably our most succinct guest in the sense that he didn't really ever digress. He knew exactly where he was going conversationally. It was really interesting to talk to him, and I particularly love his take on AI.
So thanks for being here for Alex. If you haven't seen Pavements, you've got to see it. You know too much about it to not have seen it. And
check out Video Heaven, his new essay film, and just basically all of Alex's work. He's a fascinating filmmaker.
We didn't even get into Her Smell, which I'm a fan of, and
Listen Up, Philip.
So anyway, thank you, Alex. Thank you guys for listening. Stay tuned next time
on Doc Walks for Mike Blizzard.
We're gonna have Mike Blizzard on. Mike is a mover and a shaker in the Austin film community, but for the last 5 movies or so, he has been Richard Linklater's primary producer.
Yep. including on 2 films coming out at the same time, right? Blue Moon.
Blue Moon and Nouveau Vague.
I'm so glad you said it, not
Yeah,
me.
I'm pretty sure he's an EP on the second one and a P on the first one. But he's also a documentary director with also starring Austin, and a documentary producer of 2 baseball ducks.
And a longtime just hub of the Austin film scene. So
Yeah.
he's like a great guest, a great guy, and we hope you guys enjoy that episode.
So, special thank you to the Austin Film Society for their help in lining up Alex Ross Perry for this week, and special thank you to Mike Blizzard for talking to us next time.
I thought you were going to thank me. You were looking at me. And a special thank you to you, Keith.
Well, that's a good place to end it. Thank you to you, Ben. Thank you.
Bye, guys. Thanks for hanging out with us.
next time.
See you next time.
Doc Walks is created, produced, and edited by my friend Ben Steinbauer of The Bear.
Hello. And my friend Keith Maitland of Go Valley.
Thanks for tuning in.
Follow us at DocWalksPod on Instagram, X, and YouTube.